Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Intrigue. Everyone loves Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a wonderful make-believe story of kingship, of palace intrigue, of betrayal, backstabbing, loyalty, and what you'd have to say is the prospect of a kingdom lasting more than one generation, more than two generations, succession. That is also the story of the People's Republic of China. These last just nearly 70 years, the succession struggle has always been a moment for violence and peacemaking in the leadership of the Communist Party. This was true under Mao. It certainly was true after Mao Zedong's death, because there was much palace intrigue. There was the Gang of Four. There was his widow. There was crashed airplanes. There was all kinds of intrigue. This is back in the 20th century. And then we've gone into a period of relative boredom, because in the third generation and fourth generation leadership, there was passing of the torch, with everybody getting rich and richer during the Chinese Communist Party's conversion to capitalism. Well, now we've hit a wall. China's having troubles. You might have heard. We're going to speak of the Chinese stock market and why it is representative of the turmoil throughout the country. Because the deal that the Communist Party has made with the 1 billion Chinese people is, we give you growth and prosperity, you give us loyalty, and keep quiet and put your head down. Well, the deal has been broken because there's trouble, there's a recession, there might even be worse, unemployment in China. That leads back to the original fun story, the Game of Thrones. There's now the fifth generation in control of the palace, that Xi Jinping and his lieutenants. They're running an anti-corruption campaign, so the story goes. And I welcome my friend and colleague, Gordon Chang, Forbes.com contributor. He is in Hong Kong. Our story so far, Gordon, palace intrigue, yes, is quiet ever since Xi Jinping, a princeling, got rid of Bo Xilai, a princeling, put him in jail forever for corruption, and his wife, the Bo Xilai princess, who was accused and convicted of murdering an Englishman. The story takes many turns, but I'll mention that she has a suspended death sentence. And now, Gordon, the news, Game of Thrones news, the prosecutor of Gu Kailai, the wife of the jailed princeling, Bo Xilai, the prosecutor hangs himself in his apartment. Gordon, does this make sense to you, and does this suggest intrigue? Good evening to you. Good morning.
Yeah, good evening, John. No, this really is a surprise, because Gu Kailai, Bo Xilai's wife, actually admitted to the crime of killing Neil Hayworth, the British businessman. And so you would have thought that this was an arranged deal. Now, in an arranged deal, everybody gets what they want. And so it's surprising that you have the chief prosecutor of Gu Kailai found hanged in a residential apartment. I suspect that there's a lot more going on, and maybe it was much more controversial than it appeared on the surface. And we're going to find out more, because this story will not go away.
Yes, we will, because, of course, in a nation of 1 billion people where they're not supposed to speak openly, everybody whispers. Charles Burton, a professor at Brock University, joins to comment for us about the suggestion here of intrigue. Charles, I go too far, but then again, I'm an amateur at this and I read too much fiction. The dead prosecutor suggests to me that there's scores being settled. Prosecutors committing suicide is suggestive of other deals. It also suggests to me that the Bo Xilai faction is not jailed forever, is in fact either busy or recruiting. Is that possible, or have I read too many Western novels? Good evening to you, Charles.
Good evening. Well, I mean, the possibility that Bo Xilai is still active in Chinese politics is definitely there. And certainly the story of Gu Kailai's murder of Neil Haywood has a lot of holes in it that suggest that it didn't go the way it's been described in the official narrative. And certainly her response in the course of the trial suggested that she wasn't really solid behind what she was supposed to say anyway, but was saying it for other reasons. And I think that this does suggest this complicated intrigue. And I'm inclined to agree with you. It seems that these kinds of suspicious deaths often seem to have something behind them that suggests something rather more sinister than someone feeling that life isn't worth living or taking his life, or even the car accident of Lin Jihua's son. You know, there are a lot of suspicions that may have been some sort of setup as well. So, I agree with Gordon. I think more will come out of this. I think it does suggest a regime that's troubled. You know, these kinds of things don't go on in societies that have healthy relations. They go on in places where there's a kind of undercurrent of thuggery that seems to be more and more characterizing the Chinese regime.
To recover my Game of Thrones metaphor, Gordon, Zhou Yongkang, the big boss of security and the oil business and a sponsor, a mentor to Bo Xilai. Correct me, Gordon, I'm going on memory here. He's been jailed. His family's been humiliated. They've had their money taken from them for corruption by Xi Jinping. He was a powerful boss. Bo Xilai's in jail. He was a powerful boss. Gu Kailai was the boss's wife. Are they winning, Gordon? Are what we're viewing right now, is this a revolution?
Well, John, people have said that, Bo Xilai is gone forever from Chinese politics, but that's not true, because as long as his heart beats, he's a threat to Xi Jinping. Because as you point out, Zhou Yongkang was the feared internal security czar, extremely powerful, and yes, he is in jail for the rest of his life nominally, but you never know about these things because these guys still operate from their prison cells, just like mafia bosses in the U.S. So you essentially have a faction that at the moment is down. But we know from Chinese politics that factions can rise and fall, and they can rise again. And especially if things don't go well in China, as they're not, especially with the economy, there could very well be a groundswell of support to bring back the old guys. And Bo Xilai and Zhou Yongkang could try to take advantage of that.
The PLA, Charles, we always keep our eye on the guys with the guns, the sharp ends of the stick. They, in the past, have been pledging allegiance to Xi Jinping. Could they go either way? Are they iffy about this? Could they be keeping a plan B just in case?
Well, certainly, that's a possibility. I think that we don't really understand the allegiance of the PLA and the factions within the PLA, and if there is a strong man in the PLA who might assume power in China if it was felt that the Chinese Communist Party had completely lost credibility with the people. And I would say, to back up Gordon's point, Deng Xiaoping was in prison 3 times in his career and came back. And Bo Xilai enjoys a lot of support among ordinary Chinese people in Dalian and in Chongqing and throughout the country. And so he remains popular, and people are, feel that the accusations made against him of very serious misconduct are not credible. And so the possibility that he could return is always there. And the fact of this mysterious death does suggest an undercurrent of something going on that suggests that there are possibilities that things may not be exactly as Xi Jinping would like them.
Gordon, you have a question for Charles.
Yeah, Charles, you make a critical point, and that is we speak about the People's Liberation Army as a monolithic institution, but it's not. There are many factions inside the PLA, some of them supporting Xi Jinping, some of them definitely not. And clearly you could have a fracturing of the military, or you could have all sorts of things that we can't contemplate at this particular time. So I think it's important for you to emphasize this, because this could be the one motor of change in China going forward, a fracturing of the PLA and infighting there.
Yes, I think so. And let's bear in mind that China is currently in a financial crisis that's seriously damaging the viability of the existing regime in the eyes of the people. And so the possibility of a military faction coming in to restore order and return things to rights, a populist nationalistic faction, or one which supports more liberal norms, is always there. It's the only alternative to the current regime. There is no there is no solidarity. There are no Václav Havels in China today.
Charles, just a last thought. It was said once upon a time, when Europe was dominated by kingship, that there was always a succession struggle, and it started the moment there was a new king. Is that true for China as well? Do they start thinking about the 6th generation the moment Xi Jinping took power?
Yes, I suppose so. As soon as Xi comes in, a lot of people are thinking about what's going to happen after he leaves. And certainly he's disappointed a lot of people in the way that he's approached his leadership, which has been to alienate significant elements within the Chinese power structure, which previously had enjoyed a sort of balanced relationship with the other elements. So I do think that it's a dangerous time in China, and I do think that Xi Jinping is playing a dangerous game, and I think that taking into account the current financial crisis, whether he can sustain this much longer is very much in question.
Charles Burton, Professor at Brock University, Gordon Chang of Forbes.com, and I'll go back to Europe one more time. Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. I'm John Batchelor.